Welcome to Heavy Duty Conversations.
I'm thrilled to have you join us for part 2 of our in-depth exploration into the world of heavy-duty training. In today's episode, I continue my fascinating conversation with heavy-duty expert Paul Becker. Together, we delve into various workout protocols and dissecting the program that propelled Mike Mentzer to the 1980s Mr. Olympia stage. From exploring Mike's approach to training to addressing questions about steroid use, we've got a lineup of juicy topics for you. So sit back, relax, grab your morning coffee, and immerse yourself in a world of heavy-duty conversations. I'm your host, Arjan Meijer, and let's dive deep into the realm of fitness and bodybuilding excellence. Welcome to Heavy Duty Conversations.
Yeah, I had a question from my listeners, and about the routine that Mike Mentzer did when in the 1980s for the Mr. Olympia, because he looked, of course, incredible then. So and while everybody was training 2 hours per day, 6 times per week, what was Mike doing at that moment?
Well, Mike was mostly training with Ray, and they started out, well, okay, I'm going to cut back a little bit. When Mike first talked with Arthur Jones was recommending full body workouts 3 times a week. So that's when Mike went, because Mike originally when he was a kid, he did a 3-day-a-week workout, no more than 3 sets per body part, because that's what he had a manual that came with his weight set. He trained like that for a few years and got pretty big on that. Then, of course, just like us, he read the magazines. Oh, I got to do high volume. So he did high volume for a few years. But then when he talked with Arthur, he went back to a 3-day-a-week full body workouts. And he actually competed in the 1975 Mr. America, training full body 3 days a week. But then he felt that it was just too long a workout, too much fatigue from training a whole in one workout. So he switched to that routine we talked about earlier, which was half your body on Monday and Thursdays and the other half on Tuesdays and Fridays. But he and Ray noticed that they worked their legs, they still felt tired from that. So then they're going to train their other half of the body the next day. It didn't make sense. So they took a day off between each workout. And sometimes they take even 2 days off between each workout if they felt they needed it. Bill Pearl told me that Mike used to take his pulse every morning. And if his pulse was a little bit higher than normal, he'd take another day off. That was one of his tests over training. So coming up to that 80 Olympia, that's what he was doing. Half his body, at least 1 day rest, and then the other half of his body. And he would also do some of it wasn't all the time. But that was the basic thing, and he did coming up to that 80 Olympia. And like you said, he was in amazing shape. And, you know, he had started dieting earlier than any other contest ever done. And he was doing a lot of cardio coming up to that show.
Okay, and what was his diet like? I mean, high in carbs?
Well,
you're talking about ice cream, eating ice cream. So,
well, here's the thing. Most people were doing practically 0 carbs back then. Arnold and them would pretty much do a high protein, 0 carb diet. I think the only carbs they would take in during the week would be from like cottage cheese or something, but they wouldn't eat bread or anything like that. So comparatively, what Mike was eating was higher carb. He recommended a diet that was 60% carbohydrate, 25% protein, and 15% fat. But he also made sure, he was basically just making sure his calories were low enough that that he was still burning fat. And he felt that if you're still within your calorie budget, and sometimes he'd go very low, sometimes he'd only have 500 calories a day, but he was taking steroids, and that makes a big difference. Because if you or I went on 500 calories a day, we'd lose more muscle than somebody who was taking steroids would. But so as long as he was in his calorie budget, he said, what the heck, occasionally a little bit of ice cream. But he didn't go crazy. He didn't eat a pint, you know?
No,
maybe,
it's more,
maybe
yeah, a little bit more,
what's that?
more provoking people. Look what I'm doing. I think he was a little bit like this also, try to provoke a little bit of raising eyebrows from everybody by saying stuff that he did, but not in the extreme that he would seem.
It's funny because he did practically everything the opposite of like the mainstream was doing back then. But the truth is that his influence, because you don't see a lot of pro bodybuilders doing the same type of training. Like Arnold and those guys getting ready for a contest would train twice a day. So Arnold would say sometimes 4 or 5 hours a day of training. 20 or more sets per body part, training each body part 3 times a week with that kind of volume. And then going on, practically zero carb diets. So you don't see a lot of that now. Even with pro bodybuilders. I think that Mike Mentz's influence, they saw, okay, you do need more. You don't have to train that much, and you do need more recovery. And even the diets are a bit more balanced. Like not a lot of bodybuilders now are doing zero carb diets. So even though it may not be as extreme as some of the things Mike recommended there, still see his input. People that you don't need as much volume. You do need more recovery. You do need some carbohydrates in your diet. So while some people don't think so, if you really look at the evolution, Mike did change the landscape.
Yeah. I think many people forget about this. But because at this moment he's very popular. You see him all over the place, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere. As more and more, and I'm happy for this. But many people miss the point. They see what he's talking about. Well, and he's talking about it in the 80s, 90s, late 90s. What you see, early 2000s, and it's now 2023, and they think, you see, he was wrong because now we know this and this, but he was not wrong at that time. And if you see how much he had changed already, and that the people now already, some guy time ago, you don't have to train like this and this and so many hours. I say, but listen, you're still training 2 times per day, 2 hours? You do this? You train 6 times a week? No. I only train 4 times per week, maximum 1 hour, because you don't have to do more. Yeah, that's because of Mike. Not only Mike, but
right.
He was one of the people that said, okay, you don't have to train that much. He brought everything down. He brought the volume down, the amount of exercises, what exercises, and that it's not perfect. Maybe if we would have lived 20, 30 years longer, maybe if he would be still alive now, then he would change everything to a more perfect way, and not that at the end point that he died, that is not the end zone. He never claimed that, listen, this is perfect, this is the end. No, they are just concepts. They're principles, they're ideas. It's not perfect, and can't be there is a perfect way, but we'll never find out, because we cannot put people in a laboratory. We cannot take 10 twins, put them from birth in one lab, one said we do this, one group of people we do this, and then after 50 years we see what happens. We can never do this, so we don't ever going to know what is the perfect thing, but we can come close. And I think Mike already did this by cutting back the volume, cutting back the exercises, changing the way we see diet. And I think people nowadays seem to forget this.
Yeah. One of the reasons this book is because Mike is very popular. It's amazing. There are a lot of bodybuilders from his era practically forgotten, but Mike is not at all. And but people, there's a lot of people writing articles, doing videos on YouTube, etc., and they have no idea. They're just looking at something else they read on the internet, or just some routine. They don't really understand the basics, and they're critical of Mike or whatever it is. And I said, they don't know what they're talking about. Mike said in one of his seminars, he said, "I'm so damn sure of the fundamentals on this thing." Now the fundamentals, if people really understood them, I don't think they're going to ever argue. The fundamentals are, you got to train hard. If somebody says, "Well, no, you have to," there's nobody saying no. Easy training is the way to go. You're going to have to push yourself. You have to have progression. You have to do more reps, more weight over time. Nobody's going to argue with that. You have to stimulate a muscle. You got to give it some time to recover and grow. Nobody's going to argue with that. Nobody's going to say, no, you have to, you don't need the stimulation, or you don't need the time to grow. Nobody's going to say that. Now, when you get into the practice, the putting that into practice, they might say, well, no, I'm not going to do that consolidation routine because it's 3 sets once a week. That's where they start. But they think that's the basics of it. That's not the basics. That's just putting that into place for somebody. Because there are some people who do okay on that routine. Like I said, Mike said that the consolidation routine is best for a tall, skinny, hard gainer type. And I've known some people who are type who do well on it. So I wrote the book basically to show my journey on how I worked out those basics of, you got to work hard, you don't want to overtrain, and you don't want to under recover either. You don't want to do too much in one workout. You don't want to do too many workouts too often. But then, for my own body type, my own exercise tolerance and recovery ability, what is that? I'm not just opening up a book and looking at the routine in there and just doing it blind. And that's what too many people do, and then say, well, it didn't work, but because you didn't even understand the basics of it, or do enough trial and error experimentation to find out where you're at on that spectrum of what's your recovery doing. Because obviously there's, the top bodybuilders obviously have the genetics for bodybuilding, and they're also taking drugs. So they have an exercise tolerance due to their genetics and the drug use, and they have a faster recovery ability due to those two things. But even if you're not taking any drugs, not everybody's equal in exercise tolerance and recovery ability. So once you understand the basics, you have to experiment a bit and see where it is for you. But like I said, nobody's going to argue that if you do easy training and never push yourself, that's the way to go. Nobody's ever going to say that. And nobody's ever going to say, well, every once in a while, there's some people who say there's no such thing as overtraining, but they say there is such a thing as recovery. So, okay, you're saying the same thing. If you believe there's overtraining, why don't you train all day 12 hours a day, every day.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a limit on any stress. That would be like saying there's no such thing as overexposure to the sun.
Yeah,
Right?
go try it out.
Of course there is. Yeah, even if you're the darkest skinned man on earth, you will eventually get burned with too much exposure to direct sunlight. So, like I said, you have to understand the basics, and then you have to use some trial and error and find out some experimentation, trial and error, and find out where you are on that spectrum. And then also know that over time, if you get stronger, like if you start out and you're squatting 100 pounds, it's much more stress to be squatting 354 or something like that than it was at 100 pounds. So you're probably going to need a bit more rest. So it does change over time, but you still gotta be attuned to your body and the feedback it gives you, and also your progress over time. You keep a training journal. Am I getting stronger over time? Am I getting bigger? Does the mirror show there's progress, etc.?
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, and look, the truth is that beginners gain pretty fast, but then overall, it's slow going. No matter how you train, it's slow going. But I also know that sometimes there's no going. Like I was training in the gym when I got ready for my national show. I was training in the local gym, and there were a couple of guys in there who were just training away. I would do my whole workout. They do one body part during that time.
Yeah, I know these people.
And I saw them in the supermarket about a year later. I said, geez, those guys look exactly the same as they did a year ago. They've made no progress for all. So, like I said, it can be slow, but you could also gain nothing for years of training, which is kind of a waste. So you're better off training intensely in short workouts and making slow progress than overtraining and making no progress whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's why you always have to keep a journal. And maybe the best is even take photos of you regularly. Because if you look yourself, you watch yourself in the mirror, you always see yourself different than you actually are. And most of the time you see yourself bigger. And when you take photographs of yourself and think, okay, but then you can, and never, this is my experience anyway. If you take photographs from yourself, don't look at them immediately. Wait a few weeks, a few months, then you're more objective to what you're seeing than else. Because even if you're later watch yourself and think, oh, I was not that big, but in your mind you were. And it's very hard, or even share with your with people that you know, with friends that are also in training, and see, okay, if you see this, tell me really what is missing, what can be changed, what can be bigger. That's very helpful. And write everything down in a journal. I kept myself also for many years a journal, and write every workout. I write down what I did. I write down immediately for what I have to do next time. I keep on doing this, and you see yourself progressing slowly, but you're getting stronger and stronger. And you see, as soon as the progress stops, then you can think by yourself, okay, maybe I keep doing this for a couple of weeks still, maybe the progress comes, or see what is wrong. Maybe you have to take a little bit more free days, maybe change some exercise or something. That I had this with, because a time ago I started an experiment for 6 months. I'm now in month number 6 with the consolidation program to see what is my basic. What really, after 30 plus years of training, do I really need a bicep curl? Do I really need a lateral raise? Do I really need these exercises? So I really went to the basic 4 exercises, dips, deadlift, and pull down in the squats. And I did these exercises, and I just noticed that immediately after 1 month, I saw my calf regressing, my calves. So I thought, okay, because I train at home. I do not have a leg press. I cannot do a regular squat. So I saw already, because maybe with a leg press, my calves would not regress. Maybe they stay the same, maybe grow. I don't know. But I had to put it in because they were getting smaller. So okay, I need to have a calf exercise. Then I go further. Okay, I do the chin up. My biceps is growing. They're growing. My back is okay. Let's take that out. Put in a pullover and then dumbbell curl. So you train your lats and your biceps separately. And I saw them both growing again. So I know, okay, if I do these exercises, for me, that's personally better than the pull down. And for this, if you work like this, then when you build a house, you're going to build it from the ground up and not put everything in one time. And this is the problem what I see many times with people who do the consolidation program. That's a complete program. And maybe it's too much. Maybe what you already experience yourself, the days between your chest and your back exercise, that is so many days, that can be too much. So maybe then better take another approach and maybe do only a push-pull or change it. But you will never know when you start immediately with the ideal program. If it works for you immediately, yeah, perfect. If you like to train for all these exercises and all these things, perfectly. If you really want to find out what works for you, start with the least exercises as possible and then go experiment with days more rest, maybe less rest. Because I noticed for myself also that when I did, because I'm now experimenting with negatives only, what Arthur Jones also did with Casey Viator in the Colorado experiment. And I noticed that while my tendons, they need a little bit more time for recovery, my central nervous system recovers faster somehow. It's just less stress for my nervous system. So I can train for my nervous system. I can train more often. So I can train, because I'm doing a upper-lower split. So I train my legs and I train the chest, back, biceps, triceps in one workout, 5 exercises. And I can do this with 3 days in between. In fact, because my nervous system recovers faster. But my muscles and my tendons, they still need enough rest, what I find out now. So with this, you can play around with, okay, how much rest do I really need? How much rest do I need for my nervous system? How much rest do I need for my muscles to recover and get stronger and bigger without any injuries? And you can never find out if you do immediately a complete program. And I think many people miss out on that. And they do this without understanding all the principles from high intensity training, from heavy duty workout. And I say many times to these people, but do you know, if you go to the airport and you're going to tell me that nobody can fly a plane because you can't, because you're not smart enough to fly with that Boeing 747, turn around, you see these things going up and down. There are actually people who can make it work. And why? Because they understand it. They understand how to make the airplane fly. And it's the same with bodybuilding. Right. If you do not understand the principles of heavy duty training, then you think, yeah, okay, I do one set. Okay, you do your one set. But how are you going to do your one set? And then you say, yeah, Mike says you have to rest so many days. Yeah, but he never said you have to rest so many days. That's just an indication. It's just a basic rest period that you have to take, or you can take, but maybe not for you. Maybe you need more. Maybe you need less. Try to find it out. You have to understand it. And this is something that I see many times on my YouTube channel, that people simply do not understand it. And if you don't understand it, you cannot make anything from it. You cannot work with it. And that's a failure for many people with I think with all programs, but especially with high intensity training. They do not understand the principles and how to make it work. And that's a big problem. Because they discredit high intensity training, because they say it doesn't work. Maybe, and I'm Dutch and we are very crude and very rude. we can be. And I say, yeah, maybe you're just too stupid for it. It can be. I'm too stupid to fly an airplane. I'm not smart enough to fly a Boeing 747. Maybe even if I go study for it, I'm not smart enough. But there are people who are smarter. They can do this. So maybe you're too stupid. It can be.
Yeah. You know what it is? It is for intelligent people, because if you just want to, I don't want to think about it. I just want somebody to tell me what exercises, how many sets, how many days a week, and I'll just do that.
Yeah.
It does, any cookie cutter program is never going to work for everybody. And it doesn't matter how you're still going to have to experiment. But there are people who just don't know how to do that. You laid it out very intelligently. I'm watching the recovery of my central nervous system, overall fatigue. I'm watching the recovery of individual muscles. I noticed I do need these exercises, but I have a certain minimum that I can do. So it is for intelligent people. And it's important to understand the basics and then know how to apply it. Like I said, that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, and it's my whole journey. And I wish I knew what I knew now when I first started. I would have made a lot better progress, because I wasted a lot of time. Because originally I was just trying to follow Mike's program exactly as written. And the thing is, I found out I needed more rest in between workouts, and so did Mike, but he hadn't written that up yet. But we had found it out around the same time or whatever. And so I just took the days rest, and because it made sense, and it started working again. So yeah, like I said, maybe, the people who try high intensity training, maybe they are, who say it doesn't work, maybe they're too stupid for it, because they can't. Like if you say, well, everybody, there haven't been top bodybuilders who did high intensity training. Everybody's done volume training. First of all, that's not true, because Casey Viator won the Mr. America 19 intensity training. Mike Mentzer won the Universe and the heavyweight Mr. Olympia in 1979. Dorian Yates never did anything but high intensity training. He was 6-time Mr. Olympia. So that's not true. But that's not a logical argument. It's everybody does it, so that must be the way to do it. Isn't a logical argument, because there's a lot of things that most people do that aren't good or healthy or anything, right? So,
yeah, I think people also miss one point, and because I hear this the same as you, that he started out with a higher volume. This is how he got the most of his muscle mass. Then I'm thinking, okay, but do you understand how bodybuilding works? How many years are you training? Everybody knows. Everybody who trains at least 4 years or 5 years at least, they know that the first 2 years it goes by itself. The first year that you're training, those are the most gains that you're ever going to get. I had one time a guy that I trained, he gained 20 pounds in 1 year. And that's the first year. And the second year is maybe half. Third year is half of that. The fourth year is half of that. So let's say Mike got most of his gains from high volume training for the first few years. That's the easy part.
He didn't. I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Yeah.
He did. That's not true at all, because Mike Mentzer, in his book, in his original heavy duty book, he started training, I believe, when he was 11 or 12 years old.
Yeah.
He got a weight set. He had the manual in the weight set said train your whole body 3 times a week, no more than 3 sets per body. He did from whatever it was, 11 or 12 to about 16. And he was big. He was a big 16-year-old kid. And then he only started volume training. He only started volume training around then, maybe 16, 17. And he did that. So he was already big.
Yeah.
Before he ever started volume training. And he said, as soon as he started volume training, his gain slowed down. But he figured, well, I'm more advanced, so that's what's supposed to happen. And then at 19 years old, he competed in Mr. America. He met Casey Vitor, who said he was doing high intensity training, and he talked to Arthur Jones. And then he went back to high intensity training. He basically went back to 3 days a week, no more than 3 sets per. Well, he might have done 3 to 5 sets per body part. So even the people, Mike built all this size on volume training and then just did high intensity training, don't even know the history. They're just repeating something that they read on the internet. Mike's history, and he said it many times, is that he was doing high intensity training in the beginning for years before he ever did volume training. And he was ready to quit. He was pretty much ready to quit bodybuilding because he figured he was training out a day. He was in the divorce. He, had a girlfriend, and he still had to train all these hours, and he figured it just wasn't worth it anymore. And then he met Casey Viator and talked to Jones, which opened his eyes to that what he was doing didn't make sense. So it's one of the, that's another reason I wrote the book, because it's like people don't even know the history. People talk about Mike and they say all these things that aren't true. Like I saw this one video where somebody was trying to follow Mike's routine and diet, and he took the super bulking diet out of heavy duty nutrition. Mike wrote a super high calorie diet for super skinny guys to follow. And this guy thinks that this is how Mike ate when he's competing.
Yeah.
And he's telling people, oh, he's eating fried chicken for dinner and he's still winning contests. How is that possible? It's like, because that's not what he did.
Yeah.
You can't just read something on the internet and not even know the source of that material or what its purpose was, and then think Mike. I pretty much read everything the guy wrote, listened to all his interviews and seminars, and even met the guy, talked to him and everything, and got to question him. So I am real familiar with Mike Mentzer's history. And I know when, because somebody will read that on the internet, oh, well, Mike built all size on volume training, and then somebody else will make the same comment. So it's repeated over and over again. It doesn't make it true. It never was true. Yeah.
Because if I ask where you get that from, I heard it. Okay, then send me the link to the video. I want to hear this also. Or they read it somewhere, and okay, where you read it? No, I read it there and there. Just look it up yourself. If you read it, you can send me the link. They just hear things, they see things, and I think what many people also do not realize, that Mike was a personal trainer. The first thing what they always say is, Mike didn't train like this. No, he didn't train like this, but he had a few thousand of clients that he made them train like this. And like that, he figured out, okay, if I put my client, and this is how a real personal trainer should work, as the people, they are experiments. If you put every client should be different, I put them in this workout, I see what how their body reacts, and from there we're going to or take something off, put something on, and then experiment with this person. And many people do not realize that. The first thing what they say, but Mike didn't train like this. No, he didn't train like that. He didn't have to train like that. I think most of the programs are made for naturals. I do not know the percentages, but probably most of his clients were natural bodybuilders. And and a few,
the majority would have been,
and a few weren't. And for them, he had different programs. If you see the program that he put Dorian Yates through, it's if I look at it, it's not much more different than Dorian Yates made himself. There's a little bit more detailed exercises what Yates put in himself than what Mike prescribed for him, but it's completely different than an ideal program, what is more, or a consolidation program, what is more for natural people.
Right. Well, you know, well, there's all that, you know, there's people who claim that Mike trained like everybody else, but anybody who knew even back in the day or trained with him will tell you, no, he trained the way, you know, he trained exactly the way he said in his articles at the time. Like if you look at the original heavy duty book, what that workout was, that's what Mike was doing. He wasn't doing 20 sets, he was doing 3 to 5 per body part. But you know, they hear that repeated over and over, that he trained like everybody else and just this because it made me, you know, and it's not true. The truth is that, yeah, Mike had amazing genetics. He never would have got this. People, a lot of people want to say steroids are responsible for people development, and to some extent, but it's not gonna. I don't care how much steroids you take. If you don't have the genetics,
No,
you're never gonna. You could take as much steroid you want. You're still not gonna have that type of build. Now, Mike Mentzer and Dorian Yates had incredible genetics for bodybuilding. Same like Arnold, Sergio, any of these guys. And maybe Mike could get away with training 4 days a week, 3 to 5 sets per body part because of his genetics and the fact he was on steroids. But not everybody's going to be able. He was training body part twice back then, and that's not going to work for everybody. Somebody with lesser genetics and lesser recovery needs less. And just like you said, you can't just hand out a cookie cutter program to every trainee that you work with. You start out with some baseline program, and then you adjust it based on how they're responding. And that's exactly what Mike did with all his clients, and that's exactly how he came up. If you look at all his programs, you can see that the earlier programs are more geared towards genetically, you know, superior genetic people, because that's who he was working with, himself, his brother, Casey Viter. That's you know, where those programs came from. Then when we started working with more average people and even people with super poor genetics for bodybuilding, you get down to even the modified consolidation program, which is like 2 sets of workout or something, because he needed to bring that down. For those people, that's how far down he had to go to get them the progress. And then everybody's got to, you know, unless they're working with somebody who's full theory and practice high intensity training, they're going to have to experiment and see what works for them.
yeah, and how much intensity they can handle. If you can push yourself also with this intensity, because not everybody can do that. Not everybody can push themselves. And like you said to yourself, even when you were training with Mike, that he pushed you, you felt with after a few first repetitions that this is too heavy, and he said, no, you can make it. And with this is with 90% of the people who walk around in the gym themselves, and they can never ever push themselves. So that's also, of course, a part that this is something it's in the same topic that I see all the time, and people talking about like all these studies about high of one set versus multiple sets, and the multiple sets always wins against the one set. And if you read the study, then they do this one set in the same fashion as they do these 4 sets. It's not high intensity training. So the people who see this, that, okay, high intensity training, that's doing 1 set. So you see high intensity training does not work. That's not the same set. That's a regular set, the same set as they
Right.
would do this 4 sets. It's not high intensity training sets. It's not the same. So they miss out on an understanding that if I put you through a high intensity training set, you will notice the difference. You would not want to do if I see this as this. If you finish your set, your working set, you go sit down, and after 30 seconds you want to do another set, you did not train hard enough. After
Right.
30 seconds, you're thinking, okay, what I'm going to do for my next set. You're not training hard enough. You do not want to do another set. And so if you train hard enough, that's it. Then you go sit down, get everything, compose your back, and then go to your next exercise and do that one. But if you feel like doing another set, you didn't train hard enough. You know, especially with legs and with
Absolutely.
back. With biceps, okay, this may be a little bit different than the lateral raise, but if you do the heavier exercises and you feel like I'm doing my quads, I do as last. If I do them as first, that's the reason why my calves back in the day never wanted to grow, because I did them always last, because calves, it's not fun. That's not nice. I mean, they're calves. They're not getting so big that you look in the mirror like, oh, look at this, look at this. So you did this at the end, but at the end you didn't have any energy anymore. Since I'm doing it as a first exercise, my
Right.
calves are growing. All my energy can go in there. I'm still fresh, actually. I'm not thinking like, oh, okay, I'm done. No, but then it comes. And after my quad exercise, I don't want to do anything. I don't even want to clean my weights. I just want to leave it and do it the next day and just go sit and go home, eat, rest. And for the first 1 hour, you can't even have a normal conversation with me. I'm not I'm not the pleasant guy after I'm finished working out. My wife sometimes comes and
Right.
says, "You start talking about the day or what we're going to do, and please, I don't want to talk." And this is how the workout
Right.
should be, and that's high intensity training, and this is how it works. And if you are not experiencing that, and you're still fit, and then that's not high intensity training, and don't expect that that's going to work. Don't compare that with some science paper who says, yeah, one set is inferior compared to multiple sets. I still want to see anybody, a good high intensity trainer, one that knows what he's doing. Take few people, and then somebody who knows what he's doing with volume training, and then do a science project. Then see, okay, we're going to take a group of 5 people and going to train. The best is, of course, when you take identical twins. Split them up, take somebody who knows what he's doing in high
Exactly.
intensity training, knows what he's doing with the volume training, and train them and then compare it. But not these people who don't know anything about high intensity training, who's going to compare one set against multiple sets. It's useless.
Mhm.
It's useless.
Exactly.
It's just throwing
Well,
money
I
away.
have right. There have been studies that show that one set works just as well as three.
Yeah.
But the point is, any of these things I've seen, like, oh well, the best volume is 10 sets a week per body part.
Yeah, per week.
Well,
Yeah.
well, but the thing is, what kind of set? That's saying you should take 10 pills a week, right, of some medicine. Okay, what's the milligram? Because
Mhm.
or you need so much uh, under the tanning bed. But okay, what's the why? Or I don't know what you call it, but how much ultraviolet is that putting off? You have to know. Science should be exact.
The
So it's
dosage.
like, okay, a set that could be like somebody could do 10 reps of a light weight and put it down. Okay, that's a set, right? But what's that? I don't know what the intensity of that set was. Was it to failure? And even if it was to failure, I've seen videos where people go, "I'm gonna do a set of curls to failure," and I'm like, and he stops at some point. I'm like, okay, where was the failure?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't see any failure.
Mental failure.
Didn't even seem hard. So that's the, that would have to be there needs to be more understanding and exactitude of what a set is. And can this person push themselves? Did they really take that all out? You know, and there's people who talk about 1 or 2 reps short of failure. Okay, that's kind of guessing. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe close, but I don't know how many reps it is short of it. But I think there's also let's be honest, there's personality types. The people who always push themselves hard right from the beginning, when they tried to do volume training, figured, well, I got to do all these sets, but they still all got to be hard. The people who weren't pushing themselves hard, you know, pick up a weight and do 10 reps or whatever, you know, it's not super hard. When they try volume training, it's not equal. They might not overtrain as much as you or I would because we're trying too hard on each set. So we're more, our personality type, our body type, personality, whatever, is more towards high intensity training than somebody else. And there might be some. I don't think somebody should train like Arnold did. I think even Arnold admits that was overtraining in this day and age. But there may be some people who do a little bit better because they can't push themselves like that. But at some point, you still have to. You gotta make progression. If you're always lifting the same weight for the same exact reps, you're never going to be any different. So at some point, you're going to have to push yourself. Some people can push themselves harder than others, and that's in anything. You know, there's also has to do a lot with personality. There's some people who can't motivate themselves to study or whatever it is, or be consistent with study or a hobby or whatever it is. They start projects, they drop them. Even, you know, the people who work out year in and year out are more rare. There's so many people who start and don't continue. When I started, there were tons of my friends who wanted to do it, and all but one or two dropped out over time.
Yeah, it works like this. Yeah, I always like to make a comparison between because it both works. High volume works. There's some elements in there that if you train hard enough and you do not train that hard, but hard enough, the intensity is there, then volume works. There's enough people who can make it work, and high intensity training works. I always like to compare it between two top boxers, Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson. They're both winners. Only one boxes with the points, and he's going to win, but it's going to take him 10 rounds, 9 rounds, 11 rounds, and he's going to win, Muhammad Ali. And Mike Tyson did it in one blow. And that's high intensity training. And it both works. And they're both winners. Only the one is a little bit more intense than the other. I mean, that's the difference. It both works.
I was saying earlier.
That's personality.
Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, you could do a lot wrong, but if you're consistent, it's more important than anything. So, and it still comes down to, you know, you're gonna have to make progression over time. Volume training, you're gonna have over time lift over time, or you're not gonna make progress. Even with volume training, there is a limit to how much, how often, how long your workouts are, how often they are. before you hit overtraining.
Yeah.
So the rules still apply either way. I just find that I don't necessarily need all that extra work. Like I said, I've tried it here and again, and I don't really find, for me, it works much better. Now, like I said, that might have to do with my muscle fiber type. I couldn't find it hard to hold back. And Mike had this too. He found it hard to hold back. Like if you're gonna do lots of sets, you can't do every set all out. You're gonna have to hold back to some extent. And I find it hard to do that. I might try, but I'm still working harder than probably your average trainer. So yeah, like I said earlier, the basics are still there on anything you do, but yeah, you can do more volume and still get there, and you could work harder and still get there, but there's still limits. The basics still apply either way. You're not going to do just light weights, easy workouts and get anywhere. You still have to push yourself at some point or another. I think even Arnold, they would just work up. They would pyramid. They bench press. They'd start with 135, work their way up, and a lot of the earlier ones would just lighter pump sets. But then they would the last set they'd work pretty hard. But then again, they had Arnold had Arnold genetics, and he had steroids he was taking to help him recover faster.
Yeah, because I heard he tried. He was once on the farm from that he tried high intensity training. Arnold, is that story?
Well, the truth. Here's the thing. Rick Drayson, who trained with Arnold, said in the off season they would train like 4 times a week, and it was much less volume and much less frequency in the off season. Now, Arthur Jones said that Arthur Jones and Vince Grana said about Arnold that he never pushed himself hard. Like Arthur couldn't get Arnold to go to complete failure. He would rather hold back and do more sets.
Mm-hmm.
And even Vince Grana, because when Arnold first moved to America, he trained at Vince's before Gold's. And Vince said he wasn't impressed by this guy's how hard he worked. But he said, like a typical Germanic, he would come in every day and just work.
Mm-hmm.
So Arnold got there just more through consistency rather than he was working super hard every set. And for Arnold, that worked. It may have to do with the type of muscle fibers he had. Frank, although he looked harder and denser than Arnold did, and he did work heavier and harder. And Arthur Jones said he could get Franco to work. Franco actually enjoyed training hard. Yeah, and look, Arnold still had to push himself at one point or another, at least on his last set, to get anywhere. So it is what it is. And I think there is some hype involved with Arnold, with what they, just like Weider would exaggerate everybody's measurements, because Arnold was supposed to have 21 and a quarter inch arms, and Arthur Jones said he measured Arnold's arms and they were, I forget what he said, but they weren't even 20, they were 19 and change, right? So I think that to make everybody seem superhuman, because he never wrote any of his own arms. He never wrote any of his own books. he basically always had a co-writer or ghostwriter.
Ghostwriter.
Arnold, Arnold would talk to the guy, and then that guy would write the article or book. And I think Weider always wanted these guys to seem superhuman, so they would present some things. I heard a story of Rick Wayne, who was one of the great bodybuilding writers back in the day, that Joe Weider wanted him to write that Arnold did chin-ups with 100 extra pounds. And Rick said, Arnold could hardly do chin-ups. Arnold weighed like 240. He's like, he could hardly do chin-ups without any extra weight. I'm not gonna say he's doing it extra 100 pounds. But Weider wanted, a lot of Weider's articles were all, even the titles of the articles were so over the top. How I bomb and blitz my, massive legs, stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
So you have to take all that with a grain of salt. Even Arnold didn't build his original size doing 4 or 5 hours a day training. He still did more, maybe an hour 4 times a week to build up his mass. And then when he trained pre-contest, he was doing a lot, because they didn't do cardio. They basically did just fast, high volume workouts pre-contest. So a pre-contest routine isn't what you do to build up mass, and that's kind of a mistake a lot of us kids made back then. Oh, well, that's what Arnold does, so that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Not what when he was a teenager to build up, take his body, because he started, I think, 150 pounds, and then his best was, he was up to 250 at one point, but he would get smooth at that point. But, it's not how he got his original mass, is the whole point. And Mike, too. Mike didn't build, like I said earlier, Mike built his original mass on fairly low volume, but training hard.
Yeah. Do you know something about the anabolic steroid use from that time, from Mike Mentzer or something? That you can never read anything about it, but I think it can be interesting.
Well, Mike says he started steroids about 19 or 20 years old. And it didn't seem like he took a lot. Like he did some deca and some dianabol, which seemed pretty common back then. Compared to what they take now.
Today it's a more chemical warfare.
Yeah, and Mike said that he tried that most of the time he was taking, or whatever was said, the low to mid-range dosage for such things. And when he moved to California, he tried higher, but he didn't feel he got any more gains from it, and but had more side effects, irritation, things like that. He laid out, he basically was in I think the Heavy Duty Journal, he says how much he's taken, maybe, I forget the exact amounts, but it wasn't much. 3 to 5 animal a day and a couple of DECA injections a week, which people don't believe. Another thing I read on the internet, there's no way that's all Mike took. And it's like, well, Mike was never on a lie about these things. While everybody else was saying, oh, we don't take steroids, Mike was writing articles about it, and he was honest that he did, and he took so much or whatever. So, he just had incredible genetics. I think also back then, steroids were like most of the stuff people get now are black market. Back then, they were actual pharmaceutical grade. So they're probably more potent. I talk about in the book, the first guy I ever met who was on steroids in 1980, he was just getting it from his local physician. He had a prescription, he had a bottle of Dianabol on his table, just like you'd have any medication, like you'd have an antibiotic or some other thing that you'd need to take. So it was a different world back then. It was legal and the stuff was pharmaceutical and wasn't questionable. And I also talk in the book that that I when I met that guy, the first guy who ever took steroids and told me the truth, because I thought that the top bodybuilders were natural, because that's pretty much what Rita was saying.
Yeah.
And he told me the truth. No, top bodybuilders all take steroids. Every single one of them. Don't, I consider, what am I going to do? Do I want to take this? And I decided I'm just going to see how far I can get naturally. If I ever do take it, I still should probably get as far as I can naturally. And then, the legal situation changed. In the US, it became, doctors can't just prescribe it. But look, I could get TRT, a hormone replacement, tomorrow, because I'm 61 years old. I feel a little tired. My sex drive down. They give it to me, but I actually don't feel like I need it, because I don't have those situations. I don't feel like an old man. I don't have. So I've chosen to stay natural. Even Mike has told people. I just saw a video. I don't know who that was. Somebody said that, Mike told the important things Mike told him. And one was, unless you're going to be a top bodybuilder, compete at the highest level of bodybuilding, you don't need steroids. Just train natural, because there's too many and health issues and legal issues. So that's how I'd stay. And like I said, I have competed in the NPC, and the NPC is not drug tested.
No.
They don't seem, no, my first contest, I didn't know what was going to happen. Did they even ask you? No. And it was pretty obvious who was juiced and who wasn't. There was definitely differences. Now, I won my weight class, which was great, because if you're the same weight and you're in fairly good condition, nobody's going to, you're the same weight, so you're about the same size. But then when I competed in the overall, it was pretty obvious. Like, I was the winner. I wasn't the overall winner. The overall wins were less than ripped, But he also outweighed me by probably 40 or so pounds.
Yeah, that's hard to win then. And it's really, you have to be so much, so many variables that you need to have, that you can even win from somebody who is so much bigger. Then you really have to have your posing should be on point. Your weight, your fat percentage should be on point. And when you're natural against people who are using PEDs, that's not going to work. No, it's impossible. That's a problem with these competitions, that even if they are tested, and how do they test? If they can cheat on the Olympics, then competition like this, it's the tests it's almost nothing. It's just the numbers. You have to pee in a cup. I did this also in the early 90s, and it were tested competitions. And the doctor that were doing the testing, that was a famous doctor in my country that helped professional athletes. He had the whole ice skating team from the Netherlands. He had under his wing to help them to beat the tests. So that was our drug testing doctor. And he was so friendly with some of the guys that listen, even if you test, it's ridiculous. But you're standing there. Luckily, in my class, in my lower class where I was competing, nobody was using. You could see this obviously, but as soon as you go in the higher classes and the light heavyweight and the heavyweights, they're using, and they know how to beat the tests. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, even with the test,
Yeah.
tested, untested. If you do untested, then you're really a hero when you're really natural. And when you do a tested, then still you're standing against guys who know how to beat this drug test. So that's why I don't do any competitions anymore. It's just no fun. I like to win. I'm a winner. I want to win. I'm not a sore loser. I mean, if I did the competition, the first one, I became a second on the national level. And I congratulated everybody, and I didn't feel better than other people. I was just in a better shape. I didn't have more muscle mass than the rest, but I was just really so bone dry, and that was why I could become second. And the second year that I did a competition in '93, I became sixth. That was a heavier competition. But yeah, but I go there to win. And if I have the feeling that there are people who are standing there
Yeah.
that anyway they're beating that, I don't want to compete. I want to have the feeling when I do this that I can win, and not that I know already. Okay, no, yeah, I know that
Yeah.
they're using also. So it says, yeah, I don't want to do this. So I would not do a competition anymore, because nowadays it's even more easy to beat the tests because there's more information how to do this. So it's no fun anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Are
I
you
mean, when I competed at the state level, I was pretty happy. That was my goal, win my weight class. So I did
yeah,
that. And when I competed at the national level, or what these guys like, because that contest, it was the Masters USA, NPC Masters USA. So we were older guys, well, 35 and up, which I don't know if a 35-year-old is a master, but okay. I was 60 at the time. And I placed third in my weight class, which wasn't terrible, but it was pretty obvious that I can't get much further competing naturally
yeah,
in the NPC. So if I do any more contests in the future, I'll either just say it. Like I might want to do a over 70 in the NPC because I'll be over, uh, that might be fun, but it would still be state level. Or I can try, there are, when I competed, there weren't any local natural shows, right? And that started this year with national organizations doing contests locally to me. So I might do that at some point. But yeah, natural compared to enhanced, there's a big difference. There's
yeah,
a very big difference, and it's obvious. It's obvious to us who know. It's funny because when you're new to it or don't know, you don't have an eye for it. You don't know what. Although even people who they still find something wrong, like oh, that's gross, or I think that they notice like there's something not about this. It doesn't seem like uh, it doesn't look right to them. You know what I'm saying? When somebody's super enhanced, but they don't realize that's from drugs. They think, oh, this guy just worked out too much or whatever they think.
and he's already training for 20 years. Things like this.
But yeah, pulling it back to high intensity training, a lot of people think, oh, well, that doesn't work unless you're taking.
Yeah,
But the
yeah,
truth is that super high volume training, I think, is more difficult to make if you're doing super high volume training. Is more difficult to make unless you're taking because how are you going to recover from all that work and working out daily? If you do high intensity training, all right, like we were talking about, you monitor the volume frequency, right? You don't need you don't need any drugs just to recover from those workouts. It doesn't mean there's some things, you could get as big as a pro bodybuilder naturally, but it just takes longer. No, you have to have the genetics.
Yeah.
And those guys are taking so much today. You won't, if you take, if they have the normal testosterone of a human being, and they have 100 times the testosterone of a human being, I'm never going to catch up with that.
No.
And that's really, I've kind of been sheltered on this whole thing, but I'm realizing that it's not a couple of Dianabol that guys are taking. Even at the local level, they're taking so much stuff that they really do have maybe 100 times the amount of testosterone that a normal man would have.
Yeah.
Maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah, but sometimes also with
it's a lot.
Yeah, but sometimes also sorry. Yeah. With low dosages what they're taking. I mean, you have of course when you're training, you have people who respond good for the training, but also people who respond good on the PEDs. And that's something that also people seem to forget, that these guys, they're taking high amounts, but if you would take the same amounts, you would not get that big. And it's with training, and it's with everything. That's something that people think that I see these professional swimmers. I want to also have the broad shoulders, so I start swimming. But the reason why they are top swimmers is because they have the perfect structure for swimming. And it's with bodybuilding also.
Right.
You can if you have the right genetics, you train in a certain way and you grow in a certain way. You grow much faster than somebody who doesn't have the genetics. And if from these people also who have great genetics for training, some of them they use PEDs and grow much faster than the other ones. They do not grow with the same amount of PEDs. So you have to, and even if you take enormous much drugs or whatever you want, you will never get that big for compared to the people who have this the genetics for it also. So some people, what I hear also, yeah. No, sorry. Yeah, some people think also, they call it a shortcut. They say, steroids is a shortcut. When you say shortcut, then what you actually are saying that, and as a natural, you can become also that big. That's a shortcut. But you can never become that big with steroids. Right. You can build a certain amount, but the way that they are growing, and also with genetics that they have, you will never ever reach something like that ever. It's like thinking that when you grow go play basketball and you're 5'6", that you become 7 foot because you play basketball. No, it's certain genetics what these people have, that they're already tall. And the same with bodybuilding. These people just look at the weight and they start growing already. That's genetics.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, I'll tell you one advantage that a natural bodybuilder has over a chemical bodybuilder. There are a lot of pro bodybuilders who quit and go off completely. And you look at them right now, they don't even look like worked out. I've met you, and there's pictures of them. Look up Melting Snowman. You see one of these guys, they were super massive, and then they look like nothing. Yeah. After they retire from bodybuilding. Yet somebody who's built a really good natural base to their physique, it doesn't go away, even if they're not training. I one time, I was just so busy, everything, traveling and working, that I hadn't worked out in 6 months. And somebody came to visit me, and I just happened to have no shirt on and answered the door. Like, whoa, you've been working out? And I'm like, no, I haven't trained in 6 months. But I didn't lose everything because it was built naturally. Years of natural training, and it doesn't just disappear. Just even if I quit training, it doesn't all go away. So there is that benefit too.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for this interview. It was a 1 hour longer
Yeah.
than I had planned myself, but it was a
How long?
great talk. That's why it took so long.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and it's
Well,
yeah,
never-
really. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, you're
And
breaking
then
down a
if
little
anybody
bit.
wants to, oh, okay. So if anybody wants to read my book, they can find it on Amazon. It's called Mike Mentzer and Me. And it's available in every country. Whatever Amazon is in your country, you just go to that and order it. Because Amazon's printing and sending them directly. So that makes it easier, faster to get it. And you got your own copy, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the positive things you said about it. It was enjoyable for me to write because first of all, I wanted the people to get to really understand high intensity training and Mike Mentzer's history and everything, and just to go over what I learned in my own mind. Go over this is the lessons I learned in the last 45 years. Kind of put it all together again in my mind, even. So it was enjoyable for me to write, and a lot of people who read it tell me I've had the same experience. I found the same things, and I'm like, that's great. And I hope that people who haven't trained that long can take those lessons and apply them even earlier without having to waste as much time as I mean, I didn't waste a lot of time, but I certainly, if I knew what I knew now, I would have made even faster progress over my life.
Yeah, and that's also part why I want to make this series, to talk with people who have all this information, who have all these years of experience, to share with everybody, because I see many young people starting high intensity training, have their own channels, have their own pages. So just to help them already with what you know, what my other guests also know, they have all 30, 40 years of experience. So to share it with everybody who wants to know, I'm going to post with the video, I post all the links for the book.
Okay.
But also from where I got it, because I didn't get it from Amazon, but from some other. So that's more in Europe also. So I put all the links below that everybody can order it whatever they want. Can they can they contact you for whatever because you have also your own web page, Truly Huge?
Yeah, trulyhuge.com. And yes, people, I answer all my own emails. I even I even answer the phone when they call. So, I'm very, it's pretty easy to reach me if anybody wanted to have any questions about Mike Mentzer or high intensity training. I'd be happy to talk to them.
Okay. I post all the links below. So everybody want to know more Paul Becker about his book, all the links are below. And thank you,
Great.
and talk to you later. Right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, have a nice day.
You too.